Re-Zero, Volume 7, Chapter 6b, The Road to the Mather's Dominion.
You're so cute, Subaru. Calling out to her so desperately, meow. I can't live without you.
Shut up, you're annoying. You should reflect on your bad taste of staring so much.
In the first place, if you thought about it calmly, you'd have understood, meow. Barry has to go around treating the wounded immediately, so that meant Rem's injuries weren't life-threatening, meow.
Like I can think about it calmly. An important girl who told me she loved me was hurt and unconscious. Of course I couldn't think straight.
Boys are so pure of heart, unable to say certain things, except in a few places, meow.
As Subaru vented with angry shouts, Ferris smiled flippantly as he turned his palm toward Rem, a blue glow coming over it. Even while the look on Ferris's face struck Subaru with unquenchable annoyance, he couldn't conceal his relief at how Rem's expression gradually grew softer. There were many things in what Ferris said that he couldn't just come out and agree with, but the part about triage, prioritizing healing the most heavily wounded, was no doubt the honest truth. Giving shabby treatment to Rem, part of another camp's fighting strength, and to Subaru, both key players in bringing down the white whale, was not something his master would ever permit. As Subaru's thoughts reached that conclusion, that very same master, Krush, appeared, calmly stepping over grass. "You are all right, Subaru Natsuki?" Even sullied by blood and mud, the sight of Krush walking straight with her back tall was beautiful. Naturally, the elegance she had in no way lost wafted around her, and so, too, the vestiges of the battle. The beautiful woman seemed like the living embodiment of the word Valkyrie. Somehow or other, yeah. Glad you look all right yourself. I am, but the expeditionary force is depleted to no small extent, nor will those slain by the white whale return. And Subaru responded, waving up to her. Krush drew in her chin, shifting her head pensively. Her gaze shifted toward the corpse of the white whale, still crushed under the giant tree. Over there, the survivors of the expeditionary force, with comparatively light injuries, had gathered together. Apparently, their first order of business was to get the great tree off the white whale. What are they doing over there? We must transport the white whale's corpse. With even the great flugel tree sacrificed for the operation, some sort of evidence is required. It is what comes after the battle that concerns me. Transport that huge corpse? Subaru wanted to make sure he hadn't misheard, but Krush's demeanor was unchanged. Subaru hurriedly returned his gaze to the white whale, observing the giant body over maybe 150 feet in length as he remarked, "Doesn't seem doable, does it?" Failure is not an option. The creature was a menace that swam through the skies for 400 years. At worst, we may have to return the head alone. Krush's words seemed like an exaggeration, but Krush thought it over and realized her judgment was correct. To begin with, from Krush's point of view, the subjugation of the white whale was a success she wanted all to see to advance herself in the royal selection. Naturally, Krush was not someone of such low character as to prioritize achievements over all else, which the battle had amply demonstrated. But the achievement was simply that grand. She was already the most influential of the royal candidates, with high support among the populace, and if this earned her favor with the merchant faction, which had been the final holdout, Krush's position would be even more rock solid. Wait, did I wind up pushing us into a bad spot? The degree of aid he had provided an opponent finally dawned on Subaru. There was no going back either. He'd done everything so that he could return to Amelia's camp, but he'd wondered if he'd overdone it even so. Hearing as much, Subaru held far too late regrets. Your face has become rather dark. It does not look like the face of the hero who brought down the white whale. I'll get raked over the coals as Ameliaton's biggest traitor. What did you say just now? The hero who brought down the white whale. I do not wish to be so shameless as to claim your exploits as my own house's feats. Returning her gaze from the corpse of the white whale, Crucia's expression seemed to impale Subaru like a sword. Subaru blinked at the sincere glint in her eyes, turning to face her squarely. As he did so, Crush gently put a hand to her own breast and stated, I cannot thank you enough for your cooperation. Were it not for you, we would have failed to subjugate the white whale, and I would have surely fallen halfway along my path. Speaking those words, she adopted a stance of deep thanks towards Subaru. Subaru unwittingly froze at the heat of the noble Crush's gesture of thanks. He had no memory of any human being in her kind position speaking such words to him ever. No, cut that out. I didn't do anything big like that. You discerned the time and place the white whale would appear. By your efforts, the expeditionary force, insufficient in strength, was bolstered. When the knight's morale was broken, you roused them. You proposed a plan to rescue the hopeless situation at great danger to yourself, and on top of that, you executed it splendidly, guiding us to victory. When Subaru replied with halting words, Crush enumerated Subaru's actions during the battle and the results. Told of his own actions in such an orderly manner, and examining the result, Subaru could only conclude, sounds like nothing but the work of a crazy man, if I do say so myself. Perhaps it would not be accurate to compare your actions to that of a ferocious, raging lion. However, there is no mistaking that you are the driving force behind this battle. If others should belittle your actions, I swear upon my honor that I shall correct them. Crush extolled Subaru honestly and with a serious look, without any calculation or hesitation. Surely she, the living embodiment of sincerity, truly had not a single smidgen of falseness in the words of gratitude she had spoken. Thinking back to the relationship he had with Crush until the night before the departure, Subaru could only make a strained smile. I'm surprised. Seems like your assessment of me has improved quite a bit. This is nothing to be modest about, and I am compelled to recognize that my view of you until a short time ago was very mistaken. Properly speaking, a suitable repayment for such achievements would be to welcome you into my own house, but I'll have to pass on that. Crush had narrowed her eyes and, in a low voice, invited Subaru to her own side, but Subaru raised a hand and interrupted her cordial invitation. It's not the same thing as loyalty, but my trust's already been put where it ought to be. I genuinely feel like you're a good person, and you'd probably do a good job if you became king, but Crush would no doubt be a king to nobly lead the people more than any other. Such was the extent of her character, and he knew just a tiny bit about the powerful reason that compelled her to act in such a manner. A proper reason, and the resolve to endure, was probably something she'd inherited, entrusted by another. This included, everything had served to shape the lone woman known as Crush Karsten. A small human being like Subaru, who'd continued lying to everyone, could only look at her dazzling form in admiration and envy. I will make Amelia king. Not for anyone's sake. It is what I want to do. Though I understood as much, to think your reply would be this firm. Subaru's reply made Crush's lips break into a broad grin, and she let her gaze drop to the ground. Then she uncrossed her arms, hardened her white fingers into a fist, and pointed it towards Subaru. Very well. Your exploits shall be repaid in a different form. I swear upon the name of Krush Karsten that this promise shall be fulfilled. With that solemn declaration, Krush opened her hardened fist and looked at her own palm. From then, the tone of her voice dropped slightly as she said, "Now that I think of it, this is the first time I have felt so good about being refused. I cannot even pretend that this is upsetting in the least. What a novel sense of defeat." Krush, I think you're an incredible person. If I were out here on my own, I think it's a sure thing that I'd let that hand prop me up. If he had nowhere to go back to, with nothing certain in his life, and someone like Krush reached out to him, he'd likely leap at the chance without hesitation and cling to her, relying on her for everything. But there was another person whose hand Subaru wanted to hold on to, someone with a wavering back that he wanted to support. That was why he couldn't accept Krush's offer, but I'm counting on you for the alliance thing. Even if we've got to become rivals in the end, we can probably get along nicely till then, so let's do that. Subaru Natsuki, I shall correct one thought of yours. Subaru's reply made Krush's smile vanish. She put on a solemn face and pursed her lips. Surprised at feeling the atmosphere grow tense once more, Subaru's eyes widened as he looked at Krush. She raised her hand and pointed one finger directly at his face. I shall regard you as a friend, even when the time comes to determine who shall ultimately prevail, she remarked. Even if the day we must part ways shall inevitably come, I shall never forget my debt of gratitude toward you. Furthermore, even should a time of rivalry come, I shall regard you with goodwill and respect. Krush finally lowered her arm after firmly declaring her intent in a crystal-clear tone of voice. A chill ran up Subaru's spine. It was not a bad feeling. It was simply the sensation of being awestruck. This was the woman named Krush Karsten, Duchess of the House of Karsten. This would be a pretty dangerous spot if the number 1 and number 2 places in my heart weren't already taken. I'm not thinking as far as accompanying you as a woman. Though my heartstrings have been tugged upon in certain places, my heart is set on fulfilling a dream, and so it shall remain until someday I achieve the dream he yearned for. Subaru tried to gloss over his agitation with flippant words, and Krush smiled thinly as she replied, but the latter half of her words became extremely soft, and those did not reach Subaru's ears. With a blank, Krush forgot that sentiment going. Now then, she continued her words with a sober glance. If possible, at this juncture, I would like to return to the royal capital with the wounded and the white whale's corpse, but it seems some mission yet remains for you. You can tell 'cause of the blessing, huh? The power of the blessing is not necessary. I know that look. Krush closed one eye, peering into Subaru's eyes as she replied. Then she checked Subaru's appearance from head to toe and said, Surely you are not without injury, so you have something you must do in spite of that. I've got to do it whether I'm hurt badly or not. In one sense, the whale hunt was so that I could do it. I feel bad saying it like that, though. Oh, really? After subjugating the white whale? He said it in a way that surely came off poorly, but Krush showed no sign of annoyance. She seemed curious about the objective Subaru spoke of so seriously. Most interesting. You surely took the alliance with our house into account for that. If so, it is hardly unthinkable for you to request something of us. You require aid? I do. But, to be honest, I didn't think it'd be this tough, so... Subaru's shoulders sank when he looked over the Expeditionary Force members, wounded far beyond his plans. With the subjugation of the white whale finished, It meant returning to the mother's domain, where Amelia waited, and confronting the abominable group there. Fighting such a powerful foe required Crucia's power, but with all these people hurt, I won't ask anything reckless of you. Besides, you have to see this with not just your personal feelings, but your place as a ruler. Asking you to lend a hand beyond this is just. Then how about using these old bones until they fail? Abruptly, a tall figure walked over with quiet footsteps and interrupted the conversation. Wilhelm, the aged swordsman, still appearing as ghastly as before, his entire body bathed in demon beast blood. The sword devil approached, walking with a gait that showed nothing of the wounds to his flesh, and offered the treasured sword in his right hand to Cruche. Lady Cruche, I return that which you lent me. In addition, let me offer my thanks concerning this matter from the bottom of my heart. It is because of your cooperation that my long-cherished wish has been granted. Lady Cruche, thank you very much. Your long-cherished wish and my objectives aligned, that is all. You may hold on to that sword for a little while longer. You can serve no role unarmed. As you wish. My thanks. Cruche responded briefly to Wilhelm's words of thanks and looked at Subaru. Accepting her reply, Wilhelm turned his head back to Subaru as well. Now that they were in close quarters again, the stench of blood wafting around him was incredible, and Subaru felt nervous from that surging, aimless antagonism, which felt like a slender blade poking into his liver. With the tense atmosphere from before the battle, that had been lifted, and it was a fact that Wilhelm seemed like his spirits had been lifted with it. The aged swordsman looked straight at Subaru and, after that, fell to one knee on the spot. It was a gesture demonstrating the greatest of all respect to another, one he had seen the night before they'd set out. And then, So Subaru Natsuki, it is because of your cooperation that the subjugation of the white whale was successful. It is you who has granted meaning to all the long years of my life until this day. I thank you. I thank you. I offer my thanks, with the whole of my being on the line. This was Wilhelm, he who had offered half his life to the sword, and then spent over a decade of life devoted to vengeance. Subaru, engulfed by the vast passion of the gratitude such a man directed to him, was so afraid of blurting out the wrong thing that he was at a complete loss for words. It took him a while to settle his mind, waiting for the proper words to direct to the old man before him to coalesce, for it would not do to have Wilhelm, a man of such resolve, put on such a shameful display. It's your own sword that did it, Wilhelm. You thought about how to fight the white whale. You studied it. You trained. You didn't give up. You fought it. Having tasted setback after setback over and over, he must have been on the verge of giving up his grudge. Subaru didn't think he'd thrown everything away, never once attempted to abandon those deep-rooted convictions. It was Subaru who knew more than anyone about the weakness of the heart, about being defeated, about being obstructed by the irrationalities of fate, who could understand the suffering Wilhelm had undergone until his strong feelings went fulfilled. You stuck with it until the white whale went down because you really loved your wife. If I helped with that even a little bit, I'm glad. I'm not sure this is the best thing to say, but congratulations. And well done. Prompted by Subaru's words, Wilhelm lifted his face, his blue eyes opening wide. Subaru had arbitrarily drawn comparisons between what he felt and what he imagined Wilhelm felt. He didn't think his brief words from just then could convey that, and for Subaru to speak as if he understood probably didn't amuse Wilhelm. But Subaru couldn't restrain his desire to say it anyway. Words to thank Wilhelm for his love for his departed wife, still burning 14 years on, and for his labors continuing to fight fate day after day until they led him to victory. I thank you. Briefly, and with a quavering voice, that was how Wilhelm replied. After that, he leaned forward slightly, and after a silence of but several seconds, he rose to his feet. Then he turned his gaze to Krush, and when she nodded, he said, I have received Lady Krush's permission. Sir Subaru, I place this body in your hands. Please use it to the fullest of your objective. That's super helpful, but you're serious? When he glanced at Krush to make sure, she drew her chin in and nodded affirmatively. When he looked Wilhelm over in all seriousness, he felt both the dependability and the fearsomeness of the man, his antagonism undiminished in spite of having one arm wounded. To Subaru, Wilhelm's cooperation was a wish come true. In the current situation, where every bit of fighting strength was desperately yearned for, he wanted the Sword Devil's strength enough that a hand might sprout from his own throat. But even an amateur like him could see that Wilhelm's injuries were grave. In the face of Subaru's doubts, Krush shook her head. That's not a problem. Ferris!
Yes, Lady Krush?
When Krush called sharply, Ferris seemed to instantly glide into view in response. With a skip and a step, he lined up alongside Krush, and as the kitty ears on his head made a little flutter, he said,
What is it, Lady Krush? Ferry's in the middle of going all around doing a big job, but of course I'll prioritize anything Lady Krush has to ask before everything else.
Hey, don't drop your responsibilities halfway through the sentence. Ferris, the butt of Subaru's comment about easily casting aside all sense of duty as a healer, made a sour face. He was still like that when Krush gazed at the expeditionary force and asked him, How many of the wounded are in mortal peril?
I'm treating the gravely wounded people, but I can clearly say that the number in peril is 0. Other people's field dressings were excellent, and I'm a capable kitty, so it's okay to praise me, meow.
With Ferris flirtingly touching a finger to his cheek, Subaru put a hand to his chest in relief. At the very least, Rem didn't seem to be in any serious danger. The exchange after the battle had been decided had put him at ease, but hearing all over again that she was safe was relief nonetheless. In the meantime, Krush nodded as she stroked Ferris's head. Understood. So the remaining wounded can be transported. Ferris, you can leave the existing healing as it is then. Afterward, you will accompany Subaru Natsuki and fulfill the role of his ally. Eh? It was Subaru who raised his voice in surprise at the order Krush issued. She was splitting Ferris off and making him accompany Subaru. That order meant nothing less than prioritizing her ally, Subaru, over her own camp's wounded. Of course, Ferris would object to Krush's decision to split him off from the Krush camp.
Understood. Ferry will accompany Subaru from here. I'll have to heal Old Man Will on the road anyway, meow.
Quite the trouble for you.
Old Man Will is the one swinging his sword, so that makes it about even, meow.
There was no beating these people. Ferris accepted the order like it was a matter of choice, and Wilhelm betrayed no expression of surprise at the order either. Subaru couldn't conceal his bewilderment at the interplay between the two servants and their master. With Subaru in such disarray, Ferris glided his eyes over to him and said,
So that means half of the people left in the expeditionary force look all right? About 20 people, give or take. They'll be coming to cooperate with you, Subaru. Take good care of us.
That's putting it lightly. You're okay with this?
Okay with what? Meow.
What do you mean, what? Lots of things. Can you trust my judgment? As far as he could remember, back at the royal capital, there had been none he'd come into contact with that had acted to gouge more wounds in him than Ferris. No matter how friendly a smile came over his face, no matter how adorable the attitude he dressed it up in, Subaru somehow understood that he harbored a deep disdain for Subaru's weakness. Subaru naturally thought that he'd feel reluctant to follow such a person, but
It's not that I trust you, Subaru. It's that I have faith in Lady Crucia's decision that Subaru is to be trusted. It's not like she's wrong, meow.
oh, thanks. Ferris laughed loudly, as if rubbing Subaru's thoughts into his face. That behavior made Subaru feel guilty, and while his words caught in his throat, he somehow expressed his thanks. Ferris's smile deepened when he added in a little voice,
It's a bit like you're disgusted by the one most like yourself.
Did you say something just now?
Not really? Nothing. Ah, that's right.
Leaving the unclear statement hazy, Ferris deliberately clapped his hands together and said,
I forgot to mention this, but Rem's holding the fort. Or rather, she'll go back to the capital with Lady Cruche and get some rest. Understand, meow?
Why? When Ferris made the declaration with a wink, a strong voice of protest arose. It came from a line of wounded, from which Rem had overheard the exchange. She glared powerfully at Ferris as she asserted, I will be all right. Why? Why would I not be with Subaru when he is heading into such danger from here on?
That's what you say, but your body won't move, meow. You pretty much took out one white whale all by yourself, and you fired off high-end magic back-to-back on top of that. Rem, your body's really depleted right now, scraping the bottom of the barrel, meow. As a healer, I cannot allow you to push yourself any further. Understand?
But I cannot accept it. Shirley meant to get up and protest, but when she tried to even sit up, she could put no strength into her arm, and with it unable to support her shaking body, she threatened to tumble over on the spot. Subaru hurried close and gently supported her shoulder. It's too dangerous. I'm begging you, do as Ferris says. Don't do anything crazy. But it hurts. I cannot bear it. As Rem looked back at Subaru, now beside her, large tears filled her blue eyes. It was not being left behind that she feared. No, what she feared more than anything was, when you're in distress, Subaru, I want to be the one offering my hand faster than anyone. When you hesitate along your path, I want to be the one pushing on your back. When you challenge something, I want to be at your side, stopping you from shaking. That is all I wish for. So please, you don't need to worry about any of that stuff. Eh? Naturally, Rem's tearful-sounding voice, weaving those lovely words, brought a bashful expression to Subaru's face. Supporting her shoulder, he gently stroked her head as he said, You've been holding my hand non-stop, and you pushed my back lots of times. When I'm shaking, just thinking of you lets me manage somehow. You've been saving me all this time. It's all right, Rem. I'll manage somehow, all of it. I'm your hero. I decided this was the first step toward that, so you don't need to worry. With her lip quivering, eyes looked up at Subaru. Her cheeks grew red and hot. With her like that, Subaru turned a smiling face toward her, baring his teeth as he smiled ferociously. The whale hunt's done already. Your hero's super bedeviled, I guess. Subaru. Unable to restrain the emotions welling up inside her, Rem's call of Subaru's name faltered midway. From there, she seemed to anguish, as if restraining her impulses over and over, and after breathing in several times, the tears she could not hold back trickled from the corners of her eyes. Yes, my hero is the greatest in the whole world, she cried with a smile on her face.